Hi there everyone, it's Linda here from Just For Tummies and welcome to our latest podcast all about acid reflux and heartburn, the symptoms, the causes and how we can help improve symptoms and quality of life. So with me today is Jane Barrett, nutritional therapist. Some of you will know Jane. We've done a few podcasts in the past and they've all gone down very well with the Just For Tummies community. So I'm going to invite Jane now, and I've got a few questions for her. I think you're going to find this podcast very, very interesting, especially if you suffer with acid reflux and heartburn and are perhaps taking one of the strong antacid medications and you're looking for more natural solutions, or perhaps you know someone who suffers with these symptoms. Please do share this video. Thank you. Let's welcome Jane. Hi there, Jane.
Hi, Linda. Good morning.
Good morning to you. I'm just going to turn my volume up a little bit. That's better. Jane, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Has been a while. Time flies, doesn't it?
It does. And I am loving your rocking grey hair.
Oh, thank you.
Look
Thank
at it.
you.
It's amazing. It's
It's nearly
amazing.
gone. There's a few bits of brown here, but this is now my natural colour. So, yeah.
Oh, it's such, it really suits you. It
Oh,
really
thank
does.
you.
Yeah, it
Thank you.
suits your skin colour as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think I spent so long dyeing it, and I'd have this big badger stripe here because
Yes.
my grey now is so prevalent. And I just thought, that's it. I'm ready. Embrace it.
Well, you look amazing.
Thank you.
Right, so Jane, you and I are natural health therapists, and I'm sure this applies to you as well. There's not a day goes by when I'm not contacted at Just For Tummies, and I'm sure you, by someone who suffers with acid reflux, heartburn, gastritis, and they're looking for help really. So I've got a list of questions here. We've got about an hour. I'd like to keep it under an hour if possible. Although we do struggle with that
We do.
sometimes,
No,
don't we?
we'll do it. We'll do it.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Come on, let's do it. So, yeah, as I said, we're natural health therapists. Many natural health therapists are getting these inquiries day in, day out from people who struggle with heartburn and acid reflux. So, can you explain what's happening in the body during heartburn and acid reflux, please?
Yes, so there's quite a lot of interchangeable terms: acid reflux, silent reflux, heartburn, indigestion. So it'd probably be helpful if I give a bit of a rundown on what they individually are, because
Yes,
they
please.
are often used interchangeably, but actually they're distinctly different. So let's start with heartburn. Heartburn generally is a feeling, a really intense sort of burning feeling sort of around the heart area, which is why it's obviously called heartburn. And you might get things like a sour taste in the mouth. It's often worse after eating or sometimes at night. And heartburn is a symptom of acid reflux, but not all acid reflux causes heartburn.
Mm.
Okay, so acid reflux is kind of the next stage, which is where stomach acid flows backward from the stomach up into the esophagus and often up into the mouth, causing that sort of, again, a sour taste or an acid feeling, a burning feeling.
Yes.
And you can also be regurgitated as well as having those sort of sour tastes. But you can also get chest discomfort as well, just generalized, although it's not generally sort of that burning heartburn. And often you can get things like a chronic cough or a hoarse voice. So it comes up a little bit further because the acid is actually coming up.
Mhm.
And then
And
you
can I
might,
just say, Jane, sorry, can I just say that, it can affect sinuses as well. You know, when the acid or the acid vapor is traveling that far upwards, it can cause sinus issues.
it can. So let's go straight then to silent reflux.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
silent reflux, or also known as LPR, which is laryngopharyngeal reflux.
Hmm.
That is where you have got it coming up further into the esophagus. And as you say, it comes into the voice box, the throat.
Mm.
So it can cause things like constant throat clearing or a constant cough that is just staying around for a long time. It can come up into the sinuses and cause sinus issues, even as far as the ears.
Mm.
So that's when it comes up further. And it's often called silent reflux because you don't have the traditional acid reflux feeling of the acid coming up into the throat. So it actually sort of almost bypasses the acid reflux and it becomes a silent reflux. And another reason it's called silent reflux is it often happens at night. So as you're lying down at night, the acid comes up. It doesn't cause any of the traditional heartburn or acid reflux feelings, but it is getting up. If you think about it when you're lying down, it's then coming up into the throat, the voice box, the sinuses. So that's LPR.
Yes.
And then we've got dyspepsia or indigestion.
It's quite an old term, isn't it, now, dyspepsia? We tend not to
Is.
use it as much.
Yeah, it tends to be used still in letters I get from gastroenterologists. But the indigestion is a little bit more generic, and it's quite often what we associate more with IBS type symptoms as well. So it tends to be a little bit lower down in the abdomen. It doesn't tend to be more esophageal. It tends to be further down. So that could be things like bloating or belching or nausea. Any of those, more of what we kind of class as IBS type symptoms, really. So indigestion. You can also get a fullness after eating and mild stomach cramps as well, or pain or cramps. So that's kind of classed as indigestion. And then you've got GERD or GORD. Now we call it GORD in the UK because we spell esophagus with an E.
Yes.
If you see it as GERD, the esophagus is spelt with an E, which is the US version. So that's gastroesophageal reflux disease. So that's when it becomes chronic. It's effectively chronic acid reflux, and it turns into a disease. And often there's real damage done up here. So they're the interchangeable terms. It's possible to have all of them together. You don't necessarily have one. You can have reflux and silent reflux together. But a good way I tend to compartmentalize it is if it's affecting the esophagus and the chest, it tends to be more acid reflux. And if it goes further up into the throat or the sinuses, it tends to be more silent reflux.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Absolutely fascinating. So on to the next question then, Jane. So many people, too many in my opinion, are prescribed PPIs like omeprazole and zaprazole. And I mean, some people need to take these medications, and we'll come on to that later, Jane. What are the risks of long-term use, especially related to nutrient absorption and the health of the gut microbiome?
Yeah, this is a brilliant question because all too often people don't realise the effects that these medications are having. So I will start off by saying that in my remit as a nutritional therapist, I am not a medic. I'm not allowed to prescribe drugs or advise on medications. However, I do understand them. I understand the mechanisms of them, and I can support people on those medications alongside their GP, particularly when it comes to wanting to wean off them.
Yes.
So I am trained in reflux specifically and PPI medication by a pharmacist, so I do have that additional knowledge. So let's talk about the established risks. So there are two very well-established risks of long-term PPI use, exactly as you've mentioned, the nutrient absorption and the microbiome health. So starting with the nutrient absorption, what the PPIs do, so such as omeprazole, lansoprazole, esomeprazole are the main three, it reduces stomach acid by approximately 70%. So, of course, if you are reducing your stomach acid by that amount, which is huge, that's a 70% reduction in your ability to digest your food effectively. And with that will come much more than just digestion being compromised, which we'll come on to, but it's nutrient malabsorption. So you're not absorbing your nutrients of vitamins and minerals. So I'll talk about the main four. So the first one is a vitamin, which is vitamin B12. And vitamin B12 is a crucial B vitamin. Well, all B vitamins are crucial, but your stomach acid needs vitamin B12 to release your energy from food. So first of all, the most important thing is that it helps you to digest your food. But vitamin B12 is also very important for the nervous system, for the brain, for your energy, and for keeping your homocysteine levels low. So homocysteine is associated with dementia.
Yes.
So that's a possible risk associated with PPIs. It's not as established as the micronutrient reduction status.
And is that purely because it blocks the absorption of B12, or are there other factors involved?
You just need the stomach acid to release the B12 to make it bioavailable for your body effectively. So you're reducing that ability to make B12 by 70%.
Wow. Okay.
And that's
huge, isn't it?
It's massively significant, yes. And then there's 3 minerals. So magnesium is the top one. It's the one that we see the most commonly in clinic when people come to us with PPI usage. We see magnesium deficiency everywhere in everybody, but when they come with PPIs, it's a certainty. And we need magnesium for so many processes in the body, probably 300 or 400 processes in the body, a lot around the gut health. So we might have muscle cramps if there's a lack of magnesium, heart issues, irregular heartbeats, cardiovascular events, but
sleep,
also
sleep issues,
sleep, stress, bowel movements. Bowel movements is so important for bowel movements.
Yes, of course.
So, magnesium is a very, very important mineral that is very deficient in today's diets. So, and it is made worse by PPI use. So that's the one I see very, very obviously in people that come to me on PPIs, particularly when they've been on them for years. I have a current client, we're just mid-weaning at the moment. He's been on them 16 years.
Wow.
So I've got a lot of corrective work to do in terms of the micronutrient deficiency.
And out of interest, Jane, why does he want to wean himself off them? Is he getting side effects from the PPI?
He's just been on them too long. He wants to come off them. He's aware his digestion is very compromised.
Yes.
And he is doing really, really well with his diet and lifestyle changes. And we will, once he's off and he's actually digesting his food properly, we will then address any of those micronutrient deficiencies. We're starting to, but we will do it properly when he's off. So, yeah. So that's magnesium. Calcium is another one. So again, stomach acid is needed to absorb calcium. So calcium, the risk of having low calcium is osteoporosis or fracture risk, increased fracture risk. So really important in any age, to be fair, but particularly postmenopausal women, really important. So yeah. That's a calcium. And then iron. So that's another one. So there's a risk of anemia. And we want to make sure that we have enough iron in our body, particularly women that are still cycling. That's really important, where they're having periods each month and losing blood and losing iron. So that's the micronutrient status. So really important. And then the other thing that you mentioned is the gut microbiome health.
Yes.
Mainly through gut infections. So basically, hydrochloric acid, stomach acid, is like a sentry on duty. It's there, it's protecting the gut, it's stopping those pathogenic bacteria coming through food or pollution or food or drinks, etc., or water, different types of water. And it's basically there to kill off any bugs that come in. So that's the primary concern for it. So as well as digesting your food, it's important for keeping your gut microbiome in a good health. And if we have low stomach acid, we tend to have an increased risk of dysbiosis or SIBO. It affects our microbiome. And the most important thing, so I've got a frog in my throat. The most important thing about the gut microbiome is we want a really good richness and diversity. So when it comes to the gut, diversity is really key. We want to make sure that we have a significant diversity of bacteria and all types of microbes, not just bacteria. Now, on the stool tests that I now use, which are new generation sequencing, they're incredible. They're literally only just out.
So what are those, Jane?
New stool tests that we're doing, which are called new generation sequencing. So they
new generation sequencing.
Yes, NGS they're called. And we are looking now at 28,000 microbes in one stool test. And
28,000?
Yeah, it's incredible what we can now find. So when we thought that lactobacillus and bifidobacteria were kind of like the main species of bacteria, we now know that they're actually a relatively small part of a wider bacteria, a wider microbiome. And with this test, what we can now do is we can look at how many how many types you have in your gut. So the average person should have around 200. And we're getting
200 different types of
yeah,
bacteria.
200 different types roughly, because we don't have all 28,000.
No.
And about 200 different types. And I'm finding clients that are not well or have work to do on their gut are coming around at 140. And those clients that are doing really well generally are around 190, 200.
Okay.
So it's a really interesting way of seeing now that we can actually see how many species you have in the gut. It's quite incredible. So
You're such a good geek, aren't you?
yeah, I know. And the thing with these tests is I have access to what's called the Species Explorer. So I can literally look through all of those two. So if a client comes back with 180, I can look through all of those 180 and see their relative abundance within the gut microbiome. So it's really, really fascinating. We're learning more and more every day. But
Yeah, it's
going
great.
back to the original question, the PPIs are affecting our microbiome health because it's stopping stomach acid and it's potentially leading to overgrowth of certain bacteria.
And yes, and then on top of that, if you've got someone that's been on PPIs long term, like your gentleman client, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe has had a dose or two of food poisoning, a virus like norovirus, a few courses of antibiotics as well, then this leads to, well, it compromises the gut even more, and of course the immune system, the knock-on effect.
Indeed.
Knock-on effects. Okay, so are there any situations where PPIs are absolutely necessary and helpful in the short term?
Yeah, there are. So there are certain conditions where a PPI is essential. And again, this has to be taken with advice of your gastroenterologist or your GP. But Barrett's esophagus is the main one. That's a precancerous condition. So that's a very important one to make sure that a PPI is in use.
Yeah.
Also, when there's use of certain medications, so NSAIDs, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs are the most common ones. So they affect the gastric lining. They can erode the gastric lining. So when you are taking very strong medications, sometimes a PPI is necessary, as they call it, a stomach protector, effectively. Then if you're having recurrent ulcers, or if you have chronic GORD with something like esophagitis, so esophagitis will have shown on an endoscopy as inflammation-itis, meaning inflammation. So when there's sort of serious inflammation that can be seen on endoscopies, that's when PPIs are often necessary.
Is it right as well, Jane, that normally, when it comes to Barrett's esophagus and esophagitis, it's normally low down in the esophagus at the junction between the top of the stomach and the bottom of the esophagus? That's the red area kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure where exactly it is, but that would make sense around the lower esophageal sphincter. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes. So we haven't finished that question. Sorry.
No, we
helpful
haven't.
in the short term. Yeah, helpful in the short term. Yes. So there could be things like gastritis that's been going a long time. So chronic gastritis, not acute gastritis. Also silent reflux, and again the non-steroidal NSAIDs use. It's easier to say that. So those can be helpful. Those can be helpful in the short term. And I think looking back to when PPIs were originally came onto the market, they talked about usage for 6 to 8 weeks, which is often short term. But of course, now so many people have been on them for a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
And we've had people contact us over the years, and I'm sure you have as well, who have been on PPIs for many, many years, and they've never had a drugs review. They were put on them for maybe, acid reflux, and it's never been reviewed since.
Yeah, very, very common, very common. So some non-essential times where the situations where you don't need to have them. So that could just be something like a simple heartburn, simple acid reflux.
Yes.
That they're certainly not essential in those times. If you've had silent reflux but you've resolved it, again, that's another reason where you don't need to stay on it. And if you've had NSAID use in the past and then you come off them, you don't need to stay on that PPI. And that's again where we find often people have stayed on PPIs where they originally were used as stomach protectors and they're no longer taking the medications and still on the PPIs. So I would say always advise with your GP or your GI and ask to discuss the risk versus benefit in your personal situation. As with any medication and intervention, always ask about your personal risk versus benefit. And as you mentioned before, ask for a review.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So, do you often see clients then that who are trying to come off, who want to come off PPIs? And if so, what challenges do they face? I'm thinking of rebound, of course, one of the challenges, rebound acid.
Yeah, that's it. That's the main challenge, to be fair. It's all around the rebound reflux. So even when you're on PPIs as little as 3 days, you can start to get rebound reflux. And with long-term use, it's an absolute certainty.
Yes.
And I can't count how many clients I have had that have been on them for years. They've tried to come off, they've gone back on, they've tried to come off, they've gone back on. It's just such a common, it's a very, very common theme. And the way that I like to explain rebound reflux to my clients is I like to use the water and the dam analogy. So if you imagine the dam, and then you've got the water here that's all behind it, and the water is pressure. So the dam is your PPI, and your water is your stomach acid. Okay. So you have this dam in place for a long time, and you've got all of this water behind it, and the pressure builds up behind the water. Sorry, behind the dam. The pressure of the water builds up behind the dam. And then you take your dam away, and your water floods out. So relating that to an analogy for PPIs is this PPI has been in use for a long time and it's holding all this acid back. Or it's not holding the acid back effectively because it's killing it.
Yes.
But what then happens is that you take the PPI away and the acid overwhelms the system far more than it did before.
Yes.
So in the first 5 to 7 days, it's excruciating for someone because they're actually getting acid come that's 5 to 7-fold what they were having beforehand. So 5 to 7-fold doesn't sound like a lot, but if you imagine putting a whole bucket of acid and then putting 7 times that amount, and then, it doesn't bear thinking about.
And the pain is excruciating, isn't it, when you speak to people? Sometimes they think they're having a heart attack. They have to call, 999. Yes.
Yeah, they do. And it's really horrendous. And gastrin, which is your hormone that secretes the stomach acid, it takes 5 to 7 days to settle down, so to not keep secreting the acid. But it actually takes about 10 weeks to get back to normal, which is why people have such difficulty coming off, because 10 weeks of like an increased acid production is horrendous. So most people won't go that far. They'll give up beforehand.
No, but in a way, that's really encouraging, Jane. I mean, I know 10 weeks can seem like a very long time when you're having such symptoms, but if you can just sort of focus on that the end of that 10 weeks, when after that period, things should improve dramatically, providing, you're getting...
Well, they should, but there is a right way to do it, because what you don't want to do is have 10 weeks of acid eroding your esophagus. So there is a safe way to wean off it.
Yes.
But histamine also is produced. It's not just gastrin. Histamine is all produced, and that can take up to 20 weeks to get back to normal. So trying to wean without dietary intervention and without lifestyle intervention, most people are going to have a really tough time of it.
And they'll probably just fail, won't they? And just go back on the PPI. And we know that because we receive these inquiries all the time. From
Most
trying
people
and failing.
Yeah. And often people don't realize there is a way to do it. And actually there's so many simple things that we can do to be able to digest our food better, so that we are able, when we're in the right position, to be able to wean off that PPI safely. And
we'll come on to that later, won't we?
Yes, we will. We are
simple solutions, and that's what we're all looking for. Simple solutions. So, what are some natural alternatives to PPIs that can effectively manage heartburn and acid reflux?
Yeah, it's another great question, because there's so many. So first of all, from an over-the-counter medication point of view, again, not outside of my remit, but I'm just saying what is available to people, is Gaviscon, so an antacid, does have a much safer profile, and it can be an extremely useful over-the-counter drug to use with symptoms, but also when weaning.
When weaning, yeah.
Because what it effectively does is the alginate in it, which is the primary ingredient, it causes a raft here to stop the acid from coming up from the stomach through the esophagus and into the throat and the mouth. So Gaviscon can be really super helpful. And also going back to what I was saying before, if you're trying to wean and you're waiting 10 weeks or 20 weeks for it to get back to normal, that is your esophagus being damaged. So that's really important. So this is where Gaviscon can be a useful thing.
Yes.
I don't want people living on it for sure, because that it ultimately is a sticking plaster.
But it can be a temporary crutch, can't it, for those
very, very much so. I use it all the time in clinic. I'm always recommending my clients to have that while we are going through the process and while we are getting them ready to wean. So so from that point of view, it's far more normal. It's far more natural rather than something like a PPI, because it doesn't have any of the side effects.
I recommend Gaviscon quite a lot as well, during the weaning process, alongside, some of our Just For Tummies supplements like the digestive enzymes and the live bacteria, and of course omega-3. We could talk at great length about those things, but not today. Okay, so anything else you want to say? Any other alternatives?
Definitely. So it is preferable to restore digestive function. That's ultimately what I spend my time doing, is to restore that digestive function, to improve the LES function, which I'll come and talk about. It's the lower esophageal sphincter. And to normalize the gut motility, to reduce the inflammation, particularly anything that might be in the esophagus, and to heal the gut lining. So those are all the important things that we do to help to manage reflux and heartburn. And what we're doing underneath is we're addressing the underlying triggers, because there's always underlying triggers for everything. There's always, we don't just get acid reflux. There's often reasons. So from a natural perspective, there's lots that we can do. And often these things are much more about how you eat than what you eat, which is great for people that perhaps don't want to change their diet so significantly, although I do recommend it in reflux, so we'll come on to that. But it's about how you eat. So it's not overeating. It might sound really obvious, but actually a lot of people suffer with reflux and heartburn because they overeat.
They eat too much, and they eat too late, and they eat too fast.
Yeah, so exactly all of those things. In fact, that triad is probably one of the most important points to get across, is eating too much, is eating too fast. So things like mindful eating and chewing your food and putting your knife and fork down between mouthfuls if you tend to gulp it through. All of those are really important for just getting your gut to digest as naturally as it can. And staying upright as well within 2 to 3 hours of eating. It might sound obvious, but if you sort of have a big, large meal, then you go and sort of flake out in front of the TV and you're lying down, that's not going to help your acid reflux.
No. And Jane, over the years I've been to clinics in Austria where I've trained with, some of the top digestive health doctors in the world there. And, they've got lots of resources to help people improve their digestive health. But, if you ask any of them what their top tip is for improving digestive health, what do you think it is? It's chewing. It's chewing properly and chewing, food long enough.
Yeah. And if you are chewing long enough, you are eating slowly. So those two go together. And I always say to my child clients, well, all of my clients, your stomach doesn't have teeth.
Yeah, I say that a lot too. Yes.
Yeah. You have to use these mechanical teeth that we've been given, and we've been given them to basically chew our food down. And our food should be mush by the time we swallow it. We should never be swallowing whole bits of food, and we should certainly never be having a big mouthful and then swigging a glass of water after.
No, that's another thing, not drinking water with food.
We need to be chewing it.
When I was a colon hydrotherapist, I'd ask people, do you chew well? Oh, yes, I chew my food really well. I really take my time. And then I'd carry out the colonic treatment, and I'd see what was going down the pipe. You've not been chewing your food, because I can see, a lot of it going down this pipe that's not been chewed properly.
Yeah.
Okay, so have we covered that question? Anything you want to say on that, Jane?
No, that's fine. That's we've covered that.
So let's move on to the lower esophageal sphincter, or the LES, and how can we support this? Because obviously, if that valve, it's a valve, isn't it? If it's opening when it shouldn't be opening, then you can get that acid regurgitation.
Yeah, so the LES, the lower esophageal sphincter, so it's a sphincter that is at the bottom of the stomach. The bottom of the esophagus and the top of the stomach.
Yes.
Yeah. So as you say, it's like a little valve, and it will open to. So on cues from I've just eaten a sandwich. Then the valve will open in response, and it will let the stomach acid up. So it's really sensitive to neural cues, so from the nervous system, and to hormonal cues as well. So, for example, when we're talking about pregnant women that get heartburn, that's nothing to when they get when they get heartburn at 12 weeks, that's nothing to do with the size of the baby. That's simply hormonal influences. Yeah. So the LES is very sensitive to hormonal cues and the neural cues from the nervous system. And under stress, it can weaken. So it can open up and allow the acid and or the bile to flow backwards up into to a reflux situation. So the things that the antithesis of what we've just talked about now is things like eating on the go, hurried eating, poor posture, rushing meals. All of those are made, they will make the LES function worse, basically. So how we can support the lower esophageal LES is easier to say, is foods which we'll come on to, because certain foods will relax the sphincter. But ultimately, it goes back to that triad: eat slowly, chew well, mindfully. Think about your food when you are preparing it, because 20% of your digestion starts in the brain. It's called the cephalic response.
Yes.
And it's really important to, if you have someone that buys a ready meal, sticks it in the microwave, goes off and has a shower and come back, they're not engaging with that food. There's no preparation for it. Whereas when you are cooking your own food and you're thinking, oh, I can't wait to tuck into that bit of soup, or I can't wait to tuck into that nice big juicy steak, you are starting to think about the food. You're starting to get your digestive enzymes and your salivary enzymes flowing. So when you know that, when you start thinking about a food and you can feel the saliva arriving in your mouth, that is a fantastic sign that you
I can feel it arriving in my mouth. You're talking about a big juicy steak.
Me too. I can feel it too. And that's where we see a dog drooling. Dogs drooling because they're mindful eating. They're sitting there looking at that steak on the counter and going, oh, I want that. Yeah. So the brain is incredible, and we must not forget that with any of our digestive function.
Yes. Okay. Anything else you want to say on that subject? There's just something I'd like to say about the lower esophageal sphincter and things that may cause it to open when it shouldn't be opening. And I'm just thinking about excess weight around the middle. I'm thinking about, bloating, intestinal bloating, and all that upwards pressure being put on the diaphragm and the stomach, and ultimately on that sphincter.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and then it becomes a vicious cycle of pressure, fermentation in the gut, pressure, LES, reflux, stress, and then it becomes. Yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But it does become a vicious cycle.
So, can digestive bitters or apple cider vinegar help, or are these too risky for some people?
Yeah, we do have to be careful with the use of here, particularly with people with active acid reflux or active LPR or silent reflux. So it is still acidic. It's obviously very acidic. So we do have to be very careful with some people. It's a bit of a double-edged sword because it can be very useful. They can help to break down food because they act effectively like stomach acid. They can reduce fermentation, support the bile flow. So they can be very, very useful. But I'm not a fan of people just trying them if they've got them. I prefer, so I do use those with my clients. I do use bitters. I'm not a fan of apple cider vinegar particularly, but I do use bitters, but at a certain stage. I certainly don't use bitters or digestive enzymes early on with some people because of the risk of it eroding the the gut lining even further if there's any form of irritation or inflammation.
Yes.
So they can be very useful, but often later on, when we're perhaps at a slightly better stage, and we've certainly worked on the really important lifestyle things like chewing your food.
Yes, and preparing your own food, of course.
Yeah, that does help.
Right. Okay, so how are we doing for time? We're okay, aren't we?
Yeah.
Welcome to those of you, if you've just joined this video. It will be on the Just For Tummies YouTube channel. We will be sending it out in a newsletter. It will be on our Facebook page and in the Tummy Talk community group. And I'm sure Jane will be sharing it amongst your community as well. Jane, will you? Yes?
I will.
Because it's just great information. So back to the next question. How important is it to support stomach acid production, and how can someone do it safely?
Yeah, it's really important because it helps to break down our food at the end of the day, and food is energy. So that's the single simple answer. We do need it in our stomach, otherwise our food remains undigested, and particularly proteins, that's where they're digested first in the stomach, and then it can cause fermentation. And as you just mentioned before, then you don't digest your food, it ferments, you get gas, you get backward pressure on the LES, and then you get reflux. So yeah, and stomach acid is super important because we talked about before, it's protective of the microbiome. Remember the sentry on duty that I talked about earlier? It's really important. So stomach acid is often missing, and actually many people that have acid reflux actually have low stomach acid rather than high stomach acid.
Of course they do. Yes, yes. But they think they have, excess of stomach acid.
Yeah, so
And there's
it's all
also
about
a link, of course. Sorry, Jane.
it's about location, not quantity.
Yes, yes.
Because we want the stomach acid to be in the stomach where it digests the food. We don't want it coming up past the lower esophageal sphincter and coming into the esophagus.
No, we don't. And there's a link too between low stomach acid and taking PPIs to lower stomach acid and incidences of food poisoning. It's going to put you at more risk of food poisoning, isn't it?
Of course it does, because your sentry is not on duty because it's been reduced by 70%.
Not nuking those bugs, that's right.
So,
Okay, so please do
talk
carry
about
on.
the symptoms. Yeah, I'll talk about the symptoms of low stomach acid actually, because that can be quite helpful. So if somebody has been prescribed a PPI and it hasn't helped, that's quite commonly because they've got low stomach acid, not high stomach acid. So that's often a really big sign that you didn't need it in the first place. If you feel bloated or full after meals, and usually quite soon after meals, sort of within minutes within minutes really, and certainly hours of feeling bloated and feeling full after meals, that's often a sign of low stomach acid. Also, a lot of burping, belching, undigested food, seeing undigested food in stools, and sometimes reflux that is worse with carbohydrates, so it might be bread or oats. So it's worse with carbs than it is with protein or acid. That can often be a sign of low stomach acid. And then if anyone on their blood test has no nutrient deficiencies in the ones I mentioned before, B12, iron, zinc, then again, looking at the wider picture, why are they deficient in those? Is it because they have got low stomach acid and they're not breaking down them in the gut?
Yes. But they may not be getting acid reflux. That may not be a symptom, but they've still got low stomach acid.
Yeah. Yeah. With low stomach acid, they'll be getting something, but they, as you say, they might not be getting all of the symptoms. Everyone's so individual, because someone could have all those issues, but they've got a really strong LES, and therefore it doesn't have a problem. Some people will have slightly weaker LES, particularly if you don't have magnesium. When magnesium is really important for muscles, and what's that little valve? It's a muscle.
Of course, yes. But they may not be linking their sleep issues or their muscle cramps or their heightened awareness to stress to the fact that they've got low stomach acid.
That's right.
And it's affecting absorption of certain nutrients.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, let's move on to this interesting question. Which foods or drinks do you see most commonly triggering reflux, and are there any surprises?
Well, there's always surprises for sure. But with the reflux trigger foods, they're very, very common, and some people can react to all of them. Some people can react to one or two of them, and anything in between. So this is very individual. It depends what is in your diet the most frequently, to be fair. So coffee and alcohol are the two big ones that we see very, very commonly, particularly if someone is having 3 or more coffees, then they can be very irritating for the digestive tract for sure. The caffeine also will affect the lower esophageal LES. And spicy food, really high spicy foods, sort of spicy curries, but also fatty foods or fried foods. So anything sort of takeaways or processed foods, or often restaurant foods as well. So they can be quite notorious. But then you've got things like carbonated drinks. So we all know that things like soft drinks that are carbonated are not great for us. But even sparkling water is a carbonated drink and can cause real havoc in acid reflux. And then there's the acid type foods, so citrus foods, tomatoes, vinegars, those sorts of foods. Again, if you just think about a lemon and you squeeze lemon on an open sore, that's going to hurt, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you've got an inflamed esophagus and then you're putting some lemon juice down it, it's going to feel uncomfortable. So those ones are quite obvious. And then ones that we don't realise are things like chocolate and mint. So those, so mint tea is a fabulous tea and it's absolutely brilliant for cramps, but for some people it can loosen the LES and therefore it can cause problems. So someone that might say, "Oh, I'll have a nice mint tea after dinner," sometimes is not a good plan.
You say no, and don't chew gum that's got mint flavouring in it, or suck sweets that's got mint flavouring in.
Yeah, that's right. So mint can be a problem. It's not a problem for everybody, and certainly it doesn't mean that you have to completely eliminate it. It may be that you keep it to the early part of the day, perhaps, and not so much the late part of the day. So everyone's different in what they affect to. But there are sometimes some surprises. I do have some people. I have quite a lot of people that react to things like oats and bread. And the bread is the carbs, and that's usually because they're low in stomach acid. It can often be things like processed bread will have things like citric acid in as well. They have lots of additives, so they can also cause issues. But when your digestive function is compromised, your body can react to almost anything. It can just go, it's too much. There's either just too much of let's take a sweet corn. You can't break sweet corn down in your cut because it has such a the structure of the sweet corn is so harsh. Hence why people will do that as a sweet corn test if they want to see what comes through.
That's right.
So your gut, if your gut is compromised, is what I'm trying to say, is that almost any food can be upsetting in some degree. But once we get that gut working,
and that's where people get so confused, don't they? They tend to restrict that food that's causing the symptoms, but that they end up with a very poor diet, and that's obviously going to affect their health long term.
Oh, I'm glad you've mentioned that. Don't we? I'm glad you've mentioned that because I see that so much. I see people saying, "I react to this, I react to that," and I don't like to label any food as being potentially problematic because it's not about the food per se. It's always about the environment. It's always about the gut.
I always emphasize that it's not the food that you're eating, it's the environment where it's being processed, where it's being broken down. Yes. In the majority of cases,
majority
apart and okay. Anything else you want to say on that subject, Jane, on that question?
No, we've covered most of those foods and drinks, I think.
Right. So let's move on to your thoughts on elimination diets or food sensitivity testing for heartburn and reflux.
This is another great question because...
And keep it brief.
Okay, I'll keep it really brief. Elimination, yes, definitely. The foods that we've just talked about. Sensitivity testing, no. Reflux is not an immune reaction. It's not like a food intolerance as such where there's an IgG immune reaction. It's a mechanical dysfunction combined with food chemistry. So absolutely no. In my personal opinion, I don't use food intolerance tests. I haven't done and I never will.
I never have, and I never will.
No. Okay. So the prime
I'm glad
suspects,
we're both on the same page
yeah,
with that.
we are on that one. Prime suspects are the foods that we've just talked about. Okay, the what we call the reflux trigger foods. They are the prime suspects and go there before anywhere else. Gluten and dairy tend to follow. They tend to cause a lot of gut issues generally, anyway, for lots of people. They are both FODMAPs. So lactose, being the milk sugar, is a FODMAP, and the wheat in gluten is a FODMAP. And that's why some people, when they try a low FODMAP diet, they do actually have a better, their reflux will improve. And that's simply because they're reducing overall the FODMAPs and the fermentation, the gas, the pressure, the LES function, etc.
Yes.
So always start with the reflux trigger foods and then look at potentially if gluten and dairy are a problem. But like you, I don't like people taking stuff out willy-nilly. I don't like them taken out particularly without professional advice, because I don't like people ending up with restrictive diets where they are limiting food groups.
Okay, thank you. So, what about, did we cover fat, sluggish bowel flow, or lack of gallbladder? Yes, that
Yeah,
could
okay. Do you want me to cover what potentially triggers acid reflux?
If you can, if you can briefly, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll do a whisk through because I'm aware of time. So if you think about whether carbs, protein, or fats trigger your reflux, you can get some sort of information effectively. So if carbs, so what they do is the carbohydrates will, so let's say oats or wheat, they will cause fermentation, they create gas, they create that backward pressure, they create the backward flow from the LES. Okay, so that's common in SIBO, dysbiosis, low stomach acid, stress-related motility, etc. Then if it's protein, it tends to be low stomach acid, which primarily digests protein. And then again, you've got the same thing. You've got the undigested protein, you've got the burping and the pressure, the delayed stomach emptying, and then the acid rising. So that's the protein. Fat's quite a different issue. So this can be down to sluggish bile flow.
Yes.
Or if there's a lack of gallbladder, and even if you've got a gallbladder, it's just not effectively thinning that bile enough. This is very, very common. I see this. And then fat digestion gets delayed. We have slow gastric emptying, and again, it increases that pressure. So there's often different food groups that you find. I do find when I'm looking with clients that I'm trying to find where it's coming from. Are they in need of more stomach acid? Is it safe to give them stomach acid at this stage? Do I need to improve their bile flow? What's going on with their gallbladder and their liver? Is that under too much stress? So a very common thing I see is people that have been on low fat diets, and then it causes such a problem because your gallbladder releases the bile in response to fatty foods. And if you don't eat fat, it doesn't work. The whole system just stops working. So it's kind of like you've got to use it and not lose it, that whole eating foods, but obviously the right fatty foods.
I sometimes wonder as well, with these low-fat diets that became very popular in the 80s, if there's a link there between those and, the epidemic of Alzheimer's disease we've got now.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, moving on, Jane. So how can clients begin to reintroduce foods without immediately triggering symptoms?
Okay, so it's what we talked about initially, which is they've got to improve the environment first. There's no doubt about it. They have to improve the environment and the basic digestion with food and lifestyle. So eliminating those trigger foods that we talked about or reducing them significantly whilst healing the gut, whilst having good chewing, good mindful eating, eating when not stressed, and managing your stress as well. That's also really important. And there's lots of ways that you can find alternatives to things like non-alcoholic drinks or to less acidic drinks, to alternatives to different of the foods, like having a curry that's got spices in it, but they're not spicy, hot spices.
Yes. I think one important point that we need to make, about water, about fluids, is it's important not to drink water with your meals, but it's crucial to drink plenty of water, because if you're not drinking, if you suffer with low stomach acid, you need water to produce stomach acid, don't you?
You do. Hydrochloric acid. You need water and salt. You need water and salt. Yeah.
The clue's in the name. Okay, so what are some nourishing meals or gut-friendly eating habits that can help reduce symptoms?
Okay, so I've said it probably about 4 times now. So the basics, the digestive function, the eating slowly, the mindful eating, the chewing. Sometimes for people, having smaller meals can be helpful initially so that they're not overwhelming the digestive system, particularly if they're on PPIs. So it can be that some people might have 5 meals a day rather than 3. That's a possibility. And also not having long periods of sitting, because this is such an issue these days where we
Yeah.
tend to be sitting down a lot, and actually moving around is really important, particularly after meals, because if we don't move around, it slows our digestion, and actually we are kind of designed to move
To
around,
move.
and so our digestion moves around as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay for time, Jane? Because if we do go slightly over the hour, I'm okay if you are.
Yeah, no, I'm fine for that, but we should be fine.
Good, good. Right, so, where's
Oh,
that gone?
3 foods. Sorry, I've got 3 foods. I was just going to say that last bit you mentioned
Oh,
about some food.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, some foods that I particularly like for reflux is bananas is one of them. It's a great food because it's like a natural Gaviscon. It's like a natural antacid. So bananas to me are probably one of the best fruits for people with digestive dysfunction, but they are super great for a sort of a reflux heartburn type issue. And melon is quite a nice fruit as well because it's quite low in acid. And bone broth is another one I like to mention all the
Yeah,
time because it's so healing for the gut, and it's also got so many nutrients in it. You know, it's got the
yeah. I was
calcium.
giving my little 8-month-old grandson bone broth yesterday.
Oh, brilliant.
We always keep we keep chicken bone broth and beef bone broth in the fridge. The organic one, and we're always adding that. No, well, not just to my grandson who's 8 months now, but granddaughter as well, who's 5. Yes, we always have them.
Yeah, very, very rich source of minerals because they've been extracted from the bones. So they're kind of 3 of my little favorite tips for sort of reflux diets.
So bananas, melon, any kind of melon.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's always nice to mix them up because then for example, when you have a watermelon, you've got the lycopene, the red in
Yeah,
the watermelon. And then if you've got a green melon or an orange melon, you're getting the antioxidants from all 3 colors. So I would always say switch it up.
yeah, and bone broth. Yeah, great. So how does stress play into digestive function and reflux?
Well, we've waited till now to talk about this, but actually it's really important. And I hope someone hasn't only watched up till now and then not missed out on this bit.
Well,
Stress.
what we're going to do, Jay, when we send this video out in our newsletter, we're going to mention, the link between reflux and stress, so people
Okay,
will know when they read
we'll
that.
know when they come to it. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So stress will activate the part of your nervous system called fight and flight. And where we want to be is in the rest and digest.
Yes.
So stress is a biggie there. It reduces hydrochloric acid. So stomach acid is reduced by stress. It's reduced by age as well. So if we're older and stressed, we're going to be compromising our digestion for sure. And also stress will slow our gastric emptying. So it slows down the way that we can deal with our stomach. So our stomach generally is full for 2 to 4 hours. And by the end of 4 hours, usually it's empty. And we want it empty at that point. It's really important not for it to be hanging around, because if it hangs around, we get putrefaction, and that's not pleasant. Stress can also heighten pain perception in people. So people with IBS and with bloating sometimes can have the same amount of bloating as their next door neighbor, but they've got a lot more pain than their
Yes.
neighbor. So so stress can play a part in that. Other things play a part in that too, like visceral sensitivity, but stress is a big part of heightened pain perception. And then the last thing I want to mention about this is that the digestive system, one of 11 body systems, it's non-essential in times of stress. So if we go back to the running away from a tiger, the sort of the archetypal story, your digestion shuts down because you don't need to digest your food. You've got to run away. You've got to get the glucose to your brain and your muscles, and you've got to run away from that tiger. You're not thinking about digesting. And actually, these days, we have so much stress around that people feel their bodies can feel like they're constantly running away from that tiger, and therefore they're not. So stress management, whatever that looks like for you, is really important
Yes, it
in
is.
managing reflux and general digestive function.
Yes, it is. I've recently taken up yoga again after a break of 30 years.
Oh,
I'm
brilliant!
loving it.
Yeah,
I'm loving it. Yeah.
no, that
Okay. Are there specific habits or routines you recommend after meals, like walking, posture, or breathing exercises, or yoga?
Yeah, all of those are great. I mean, it's really good to be walking after a meal. Again, I don't like the idea of people that just go and sit in front of the TV after they've eaten. It's not a good thing. So for starters, you can be doing your washing up. So actually, you're washing up, although it's a boring job, and we often have dishwashers to do it, washing up and clearing up after a meal is a good thing to do rather than just sitting down. And even taking the dog for a walk after you've eaten as well. That's
Yeah.
always a good option. And posture is really important. So sort of sitting upright and not slouching. If you think, you mentioned very early on about the when you sort of slouch, you can see how much I've slouched
Yeah,
down.
like
So
that.
even now my LES is really squashed.
Mm,
Whereas when I'm sitting up like that with a straight back,
mm,
my LES has got plenty of room around it.
yes. Your shoulders back, yeah.
And then breathing exercises, part of yoga.
Mm, mm,
Yoga
yeah.
is fantastic. Yoga and Pilates are fantastic because they are moving and stretching your muscles. And sometimes you are stretching right out.
Mm,
And when my Pilates teacher says to me, I want you to feel all the air between all your individual ribs, you think of all the lovely space that is giving to all of your organs, particularly the diaphragm as well. So the diaphragm is really important for breathing exercises as well.
And those postures, like the yoga postures, like salute to the sun, where it's a beautiful backward bend like that, or the cobra or the sphinx. They're so
Yeah.
good, aren't they, at stretching this whole area
They're
here.
absolutely brilliant. They honestly, movement in any form, whether it's Tai Chi or yoga or Pilates, they are all really good for your digestive function for sure. And the breathing is really important because the diaphragmatic breathing, or what we call belly breathing. So again, anything that we do that's diaphragmatic breathing is getting space around that, and it also strengthens the LES. So when you take an in breath, you want your belly to expand.
You
So
do,
you
yes.
don't want your chest to expand.
Just watch how a baby breathes.
Yes, no, that's so true. When they're lying there, you see their stomach going up and down, their gut going up and down, and that's what we want. That in breath there, where the and you can put your hands on your belly and you can breathe in and you can feel it go out. That's what we need. So diaphragmatic breathing is really important, and you can actually do that post meals, or you can do it as part of your meditation practice, as part of your yoga or your Pilates. But all three of those, movement, posture, breathing, are really important, and they're mostly free, aren't they? Apart from paying for a yoga class, they're mostly free and easy for anybody to do of
Yes.
whatever their health concerns are. All of those
You can
are
watch a yoga video. There's some really good yoga videos on YouTube.
there are
There's some great yoga. I mean, now that I'm at 60 plus, I get a great deal with our local gym. I'm a senior citizen. So I have access to the gym, the classes, yoga. I'm going to aqua aerobics this afternoon. It's all included in the price. It's
yeah,
£30 a month, Jane.
that's brilliant.
£30
That's
a
brilliant.
month. Yeah. Right. So moving on. So yes, people, please do try and find time to do some. To do something for you, to reduce your stress levels. Just a few minutes a day. That's all. That's all it takes. What's your advice on meal timing, especially with clients who eat late or skip meals? It's so common, isn't it? So
Really
common.
common. It's become more common now. We have food available 24/7 with takeaways that you can just have coming to your door. Certain, drive-throughs are open 24/7. It's just it's a much harder battle to fight when we're trying to get people to have sort of general good meal timing. But eating late is a massive one for reflux. It's probably one of the number one lifestyle things to change. Is generally allow 3 to 4 hours after meals before you go to bed, because once you go to sleep, so does your digestion. So you need to be awake when your digestion is working. So 3 to 4 hours generally is what it takes for the stomach empty. I always say to my clients, get used to going to bed hungry.
Yes. Yes,
And
it's
some
normal.
people don't like to feel that, but actually it's normal. It's what you should be doing. You should be thinking, I'm feeling a little
And
bit
if you do
hungry.
feel hungry, just have a glass of water.
Yeah, yeah,
But then you
yeah.
might be getting up in the middle of the night for a wee if
Well,
you're
yeah, that's
eating too
another
much.
issue. Yeah, that is another issue. But yeah, so that's eating late. Skipping meals. I do find that people that skip meals, they tend to overeat later on because they skip a meal for whatever reason. And then later on, they reach for something that's usually a quick release. And of course, they tend to be carbs. They tend to be more processed carbs. So skipping meals is generally not advised. Everybody benefits from consistency. And I would say particularly women do. Women do more so because the hormones are more in play. And I find that anything that we can do consistently, so that's eating, that's sleeping, that's managing our stress, it's really beneficial for the body. And where we start to sort of eat late or skip meals, it's getting out of our natural rhythms.
Yes, just develop those good, consistent habits.
Yeah, consistency is really good. The body loves consistency; it thrives on it.
Mm.
So I think those two. So we covered the eat and the skip meals. The meal
Yeah.
timing.
Mm.
So generally, as a general guidance, 3 good meals a day is a really good guidance for most people. However, with people with acid reflux, sometimes starting with smaller meals might be beneficial
Yes.
while they're working on digestive function and improving that. So sometimes that can be useful. But ideally, our gut loves to have a rest between meals. It loves to have a sort of a 4 to 5 hour break between meals, and certainly an overnight break of around 12 hours. So having an overnight intermittent fast, which is basically making sure that you've finished all of your food by 8 p.m. in the evening and not having breakfast till 8 a.m. the next morning and having nothing but water through that time, then there's lots of benefits for the gut of having that rest, because sometimes our guts are just overburdened with trying to do too much. I mean, trying to digest some, let's just say, a piece of bread at 11 p.m. It's carbohydrates with nowhere to go, let alone the gut issues. Then you're talking of increasing the risk of diabetes, because that's glucose with nowhere to go because you're going to sleep and you're not using any fuel.
I remember when I was growing up, Jane, just briefly, when I was still living at home with my parents, on a Saturday night, they'd go out with friends drinking. They'd come back, and this is back in the late 1960s, early 1970s. They put the chip pan on. 11:30 at night, she'd be peeling potatoes and making chips, and they'd be having chip butters. I mean, we'd be in bed, of course, but ooh, never done that.
Oh, I tried to think of the reflux
I
there.
know, but no, Mum never suffered with reflux, and neither did Dad. Never ever. They had
They
other
must have
health
had
issues, but
they must have had very strong sphincters.
yeah, very strong sphincters. Yes, yes. There was something I wanted to say there, and it's got. Oh, I just wanted to mention my daughter-in-law. My daughter-in-law's Ukrainian. Her breakfast every morning, Jane, is amazing. It is a work of art, and she takes her time every morning preparing her breakfast. So she'll have a leg of duck. She loves duck, and
Oh, duck.
she'll cook
Savoury
it
breakfast.
fresh. Yeah, she'll have some avocado. There'll be a little bit of caviar on there. There'll be a tomato, an egg. Her plate is just. I'll get her to take a photo one
Oh,
morning, and I'll send
please,
it to you.
please. Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to put that in a newsletter, actually.
Yes, yeah, it's just amazing, her breakfast, and she's bringing her children up, to eat the same. The baby, the 8-month-old, he has ghee every morning. He loves a spoonful of ghee. Anyway, so let's have a look at. Oh yeah, well, all I want to say now, Jane, is a massive thank you for your time. I think this podcast is going to help so many people, and How else can you help people? What other resources do you have? Because I know you've done extra training in the management of heartburn and acid reflux. So, how do people contact you? How do they access your resources?
No, yes. So everything is available through my website, which is nurturingnutrition.co.uk. So
Yeah.
most things are on there. What I would say is I do have a really good free handout, which is about drinks and reflux, because often we talk about foods, but actually drinks can be culprits too. So I've
Mm.
got a free handout that talks just about drinks to try and to limit, and drinks to include. So that's a sort of a first start. And then getting onto my newsletter list is a good idea, because I do send out weekly little tips of various things. A lot of those are based around reflux as well.
I get your weekly little tips.
You
They're great.
do, you
I
do,
love
yes,
them.
yeah. So lots of those are based on reflux as well. And then I am launching an online course based on managing reflux. So the
Mm.
idea of it is a 4-month course. And the reason it's 4 months is because for most people, that's what it takes to eliminate the trigger foods, to start to get the gut really working well. A lot of things that we've talked about today. So what I'm doing is giving that information that we've talked about today, but I'm also helping people through that stage, because ultimately it takes time. It's not an overnight quick thing, particularly
Sorry,
if
Jean. They're building outside. I've just shut the
you
window.
particularly if people have had these issues going on for a long time. It's not going to be a quick fix. It will take time to heal that inflammation in the esophagus. So that's why it's 4 months, because that's kind of the really good timing to get people to have changed new habits and to have healed what's going on there. And then if people, the course is essentially the foundation for being ready to wean off a PPI. So
I
if
see.
they want to wean off a PPI, the course will give all of that information.
And they
And
can
then
access that course from your website.
then, not at the moment, because it's not up there at the moment, but they can always email me to go on the waiting list if
Oh,
they
I
would like
see.
to. But
Okay.
if they sign up to the drinks and reflux handout, then they'll automatically go on my newsletter list anyway, and they'll get told. But they're very welcome to just email me, jane@nurturingnutrition.co.uk, and I can put them on the waiting list. So it's going to be available September, and we're going to run it from October through to January. So we're
Mm.
covering the winter period when people like to sort of learn more, but
Yeah.
also when we're navigating Christmas, and Christmas
Christmas.
is a nightmare for people with
Yeah.
acid reflux and heartburn. So that's why we've done it in that stage. And then we're sort of going through to January, which is sort of a new year and starting to approach. So hopefully by the time they're then starting to get in towards next spring, they're going into it without any acid reflux.
Okay, that's great. So that's nurturingnutrition.co.uk.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And just before you go, I know that you are also a trauma trained practitioner, and how trauma affects the digestive system. Is that right?
Yeah,
So
very much
I'd
so.
like to, at some stage, Jane, talk to you about that and do a
Oh,
podcast
yes.
about that if you're up for it.
Yes, definitely. That's a
Yeah.
really good subject to cover. It covers
Yeah.
so much. Yeah. We'd be very
Okay.
happy to.
Okay, we'll sort that out. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for listening, watching, and we'll be back soon. Thank you, Jane. Enjoy the rest of your day.